ghosts walk as one. Cocked and loaded, I shun the sun. Radio burst, final code. Broken earth, death's sweet load. No peace here, void of sound. Razor air where dreams drown. In the haze, wars undressed. Eagles soar from the west.
Everybody, welcome to Texas News Studio. I'm your host, Mark Myers, and we've got a lot going on in the world right now, so I want to get you caught up on today's news, which is just keeps on getting more interesting by the day. Before we get going, some quick shout outs to everybody tonight on our platforms. Good to see Jan coming in here over on YouTube, and then everybody coming in on Twitch and also on Rumble. So good to see everybody. Glad to see you all tonight. Let's get caught up on some of these news headlines of the day. Now, first off, this has been breaking. Of course, the big news is that Ukraine has launched British Storm Shadow missiles into Russia earlier today. We've had reports up to 12, maybe even up to 14 earlier today. So just a lot going on. And some of these reports, has been so much information coming in that some of the stuff we have to be careful because sometimes it's unconfirmed. So we're going to just have to kind of sort through everything. We'll give you the best information we can in terms of some of the back and forth of what's going on. Had a lot of activity going on tonight with EAM messages. Number one, we've been monitoring some aviation potential activity over in Russia as well, some naval activity as well. Some of this has been unconfirmed so far. And there has been some drone attacks also from Ukraine into Russia tonight as well. Some talk of maybe something bigger that could be happening tonight. So we will definitely keep an eye on it. Sometimes what happens is when we sign off here at TNS on YouTube, a few hours later everything really gets going. So we'll keep you updated on that. Also, NATO has stated that having an investigation been ongoing into the damage caused to several underseas communication cables in the Baltic Sea earlier this week. They've had increased patrols and exercises occurring near critical underseas infrastructure. Now, this is something that's made a lot of news today. Some of them from relatively well-known sources that we would normally follow, including even In-Game, First Squawk, and others. So you can take it or leave it for what it's worth or not worth. But I saw this. A lot of us saw this news item. But again, this was up earlier. It says Russian forces are preparing to launch the RS-26 intercontinental ballistic missile weighing 36,000 kilograms with a range of 6,000 kilometers and a possible attack on Kyiv. Now, this will be unconventional warheads, but still a big, basically an ICBM missile. Now, again, this is all unconfirmed, but did make some pretty big sources, including First Squawk and some others, which we normally would kind of rely upon for that. They're the ones and others that would be reporting like if a North Korean missile was up in the air. So it's something we're going to keep an eye on. But other than that, I really don't have any other information. A lot of that's just unconfirmed or unreliable information at the moment. So I don't have anything else to report on that. Most people think that that's a nothing burger, so take it or leave it for what it's worth on that. We will definitely keep an eye on things. Also, just breaking earlier tonight as well, you may not be aware of this, the Biden administration has asked Congress now to approve the cancellation of nearly half of Ukraine's economic debt. Wouldn't that be nice if it would happen here in the United States? $4.65 billion. Okay? Let me say that again. The Biden administration asked Congress to approve the cancellation of nearly half of Ukraine's economic debt. $4.65 billion. Almost $10 billion was provided to Kyiv as a conditional loan, not as free aid. Now, this new proposal grants Biden the authority to forgive 50% of this loan. Just want to make you aware of that. Other reports coming in tonight. Some Ukrainians military hint that there will be a fun atmosphere in Russia tonight. We'll see if that develops or not. Also, Ukraine has just announced that through its foreign ministry that it will not accept any peace proposal that compromises the country's territorial integrity and sovereignty. So those are just some of the very big, breaking, urgent headlines that we got. So we want to make you aware of that. What else we got? Hey, thanks JC2K. Thank you. Appreciate that over on Rumble. Going on, guys. I'm going to get you caught up on some of the other big headlines of the day. Again, these are developments that we've been watching very closely. Let me get you caught up on this. The next report that I've got here, this was reported earlier today, but again, the U.S. Embassy, at least earlier in Kyiv, shut down amid escalating tensions. We had reports that I think they've been open again. But again, earlier, at least, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv had officially shut its doors, citing intelligence, at least at the time, of a potential significant air attack on the Ukrainian capital. Of course, this alarming development comes just days after Ukraine launched U.S.-supplied Attack missiles against Russian targets. Again, an escalation greenlit none other than President Biden. Now, to break this down, the administration hands over advanced weaponry, essentially fanning the flames of an already volatile conflict, and now we're pulling our own people out of harm's way. How does that add up? Is this strategic foresight, or are we witnessing another example of reckless policy making with global consequences? Again, the U.S. Embassy is not alone in this move. Now, Spain, at least in Greece, again, or at least earlier today, have also shut down their diplomatic operations, with their citizens advised to exercise extreme caution. And again, for Americans still in Ukraine, the embassy has issued a stark warning. Be prepared to immediately shelter in place if an air alert is announced. Now, to let that sink in, our citizens are being told to hunker down in a war zone, while our leadership seems more focused on optics than outcomes. Again, this raises the question, where does this end? Are we prepared for the potential fallout of these decisions, not just in Ukraine, but on the world stage? And at what point does escalating support for a proxy war cross the line from defensive aid to outright provocation? Again, here at TNS, we're going to be asking these questions, and of course the mainstream media usually doesn't do much of any of that, because we're going to dive in a little bit deeper, challenge the narrative, demand accountability. Of course, we'll keep you updated on this situation, which I told you before, that has changed since the story earlier today, which just shows you how quickly things are developing with this situation with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia right now. Now, also, this broke yesterday evening as well, but we're watching a very serious development that's sparking outrage and raising serious ethical questions. The U.S. government is now sending advanced landmine systems to Ukraine, escalating an already volatile situation. Now, this is coming from All News Pipeline, but it's also been reported on multiple outlets as well. Again, according to reports, the U.S. has started delivering high-tech landmine systems to Ukraine, marking a significant shift in the type of military aid being sent. And these aren't the crude scattershot devices of decades past. These are next-generation systems equipped with sensors, timers, and even remote detonation capability. They're described as smart mines, designed to distinguish between friend and foe. But again, here's the question we should all be asking. How smart is it to deploy such systems in a region already teetering on the brink of disaster? Again, supporters of the move argue that these advanced systems are defensive in nature, aimed at protecting Ukrainian forces from Russian advances. But critics warn of the long-term consequences. Now, once these devices are deployed, they don't simply just disappear. Landmines have a history of creating lasting scars on the landscape, endangering civilians long after the conflict ends. And just to not forget the moral dimension here. The U.S. has had been a signatory of the Man-Mine Treaty, which prohibits the use of anti-personnel landmines. And now, while technically these smart mines may skirt around the definition, the spirit of the treaty is clear. Indiscriminate weapons that pose a threat to civilians have no place in modern warfare. Also, this development raises troubling questions about the administration's endgame in Ukraine. Are we helping Ukraine defend its sovereignty, or are we inching closer again to direct conflict with Russia? Every new shipment of advanced weaponry escalates the stakes, and the American people deserve to know where this is heading. And also, again, just from some of the same reports, again, Biden has authorized the shipment of anti-personnel mines to Ukraine. And this is in contrast to the earlier stance on the issue. This is coming from Zero Hedge. In 2022, Biden reinstated an Obama-era policy restricting the use of such mines, criticizing the previous administration's approach as reckless. Now, facing mounting pressure from the Ukrainian president and recent Russian advances, the administration has reversed course, permitting the transfer of these controversial weapons. Critics argue that this decision not only undermines international efforts to ban landmines, but also poses significant risk to civilian populations, again, long after the conflict ends. Now, the Ottawa Convention, which prohibits the use and transfer of anti-personnel mines, has been signed by 164 nations. Notably, the United States and Russia are actually not among them. That's with the Ottawa Convention, that is. But this policy shift raises critical questions about the administration's long-term strategy in Ukraine and the ethical implications of deploying weapons known for their indiscriminate nature. Again, are we prioritizing short-term military objectives over enduring humanitarian concerns? Now, got more reports coming in today. We were watching, of course, what's going on in the Baltic Sea. And according to a report, this was reported by Zero Hedge, there's been, again, which has been reported lately in the last few days, a mysterious disruption of fiber optic cables in the Baltic Sea, and a Danish Coast Guard is now shadowing Chinese vessels in the area. And just to unpack this, the Baltic Sea, again, is a critical corridor for undersea fiber optic cables that facilitate internet and communication services between European countries and beyond. Disruption here isn't just a technical hiccup. It's a potential threat to international communication, commerce, and security. Now, again, the details are sparse, and that's part of the problem. The, quote, disruption remains murky, both literally and figuratively. What we do know is that the Danish Coast Guard has been closely monitoring Chinese ships operating in the vicinity of the damaged cables. Now, coincidence? I don't think so, but in geopolitics, coincidences are very rare. Chinese vessels in question are reportedly research ships. But let's not get ourselves. In international waters, the lines between research and reconnaissance can be thinner than a fiber optic strand. The fact that these ships are present near the site of the disruption raises eyebrows and questions that demand answers. Again, is this an act of sabotage? Are we witnessing a new form of undersea cyber warfare? Or is it merely an unfortunate accident compounded by international mistrust? Unfortunately, the Danish authorities are keeping tight-lipped, offering little more than standard statements about, quote, an ongoing investigation. But again, let's consider the broader context. Again, tensions between Western nations and China have been escalating on multiple fronts in terms of trade, technology, and territorial disputes. The Baltic Sea might seem an unlikely hotspot, but in an interconnected world, every region is a potential flash point. The potential implications are significant. Disruptions to these undersea cables could cripple financial markets, hinder military communications, and disrupt everyday internet access for millions. It's a silent vulnerability that many take for granted. And also, where it gets even more interesting, other nations bordering the Baltic Sea, like Sweden and Finland, have also reported unusual naval activities again in recent weeks. Could this be part of a larger pattern? Are foreign powers testing the resilience and response times of Western infrastructure? It's hard not to draw parallels to the past incidents where critical infrastructure was targeted to send a message or probe for weaknesses. And again, remember, undersea cables are notoriously difficult to monitor and protect, making them an attractive target for any nation looking to exert pressure without overt aggression. Again, of course, China's government has not issued any statement regarding these allegations, and without concrete evidence, we must tread carefully. But again, the lack of transparency only fuels speculation. The takeaway here, first, this incident highlights the fragility of our global communication networks and the need for heightened security measures. Second, it underscores the complex dance of international relations, where actions often speak louder than words, and where the shadow can hide more than meets the eye. And again, as consumers and citizens, we should be aware of how these silent conflicts can impact our daily lives, again, from the stock market to the very internet services we rely on. Of course, we're going to be keeping a close eye on this developing story, digging for the truth beneath the surface, literally and figuratively. So that's one report in here. We're also still monitoring all the breaking news that have been going on in the world tonight. I'm checking in with our moderators as well. We just had a report from Rhonda in here of a volcanic eruption is underway in southwest Iceland. That just broke just moments ago. We want to make you aware of that as well. So again, let's continue on. We'll get back to that. Just breaking now, we've had a volcanic eruption in southwest Ireland. Rhonda's got the video up. It's over on our Twitch chat under Roz Global. I'll get back to that in just a second because that just broke, but we want to continue on with some of these other news developments going on. This is coming again from the Gateway Pundit here, and the more in terms of tensions around the world, and of course with Russia and Ukraine. According to a report from the Gateway Pundit published on today's date, concerns are mounting that we could be edging closer to a broader international conflict. Some are even whispering the dreaded term World War III. Now, to unpack this and what's going on, while details are still emerging, the crux of the issue revolves around the introduction of advanced American military hardware into an already unstable geopolitical landscape. I think we already know what's been going on. But again, this move has not gone unnoticed by rival nations who view it as provocative act. So we're talking beyond just what's going on with Russia, but we're talking about China, North Korea, and others in particular. And this view here potentially upsetting the delicate balance of power. And again, it's worth noting that history has shown us how quickly situations can spiral out of control when new weapons enter the fray. Remember, it's a series of miscalculations and alliances that led to the outbreak of the first two world wars. And again, are we witnessing a similar pattern unfolding before our eyes? Then again, the nations involved are ramping up their rhetoric, again, not just with Ukraine or Russia, but also you've been hearing more about North Korea lately, obviously what's going on with China and Taiwan, and you can just feel it, a palpable sense of unease. Diplomatic channels are seen to be strained, and the usual backdoor negotiations appear to be yielding little progress, even including the hotline, which you got over on the side over here between Russia and the United States, has been unused for quite some time now. So it's as if everybody's talking, but no one's really listening. And that's even if they're talking. But again, a dangerous place where the stakes are very high. Also, the economic implications as well. Global stock markets have taken a hit recently, with investors reacting nervously to the news. The Dow is down, S&P slipping, international markets are following suit. Uncertainty is the enemy of economic stability, and right now there's plenty of it to go around. But again, beyond the numbers and political posturing, there's a human element we can't ignore. This prospect of an escalated conflict means real lives are at risk, soldiers on the front lines, innocent civilians caught in the crossfire, families torn apart. And of course, it's easy to get lost in the grand chess game of global politics and forget the individual stories of hardship and loss that come with war. Now, some might argue that showing strength is necessary to deter adversaries. However, there is a fine line between deterrence and provocation. Again, are we strengthening our position? Are we actually inadvertently fanning the flames of conflict? It's a question that deserves serious consideration. And again, let's not overlook the role of the media in all this. Sensational headlines, speculative reporting can exacerbate tensions, and it's our responsibility to present the facts accurately and encourage thoughtful discourse rather than knee-jerk reactions. So again, what's the path forward? Diplomacy should be the first resort, not the last. Open lines of communication, mutual respect, and a willingness to find common ground are essential. Again, the alternative is a path none of us want. Descent into a conflict that could have far-reaching and devastating consequences. Also, going on with some other news. Now, this might seem a little bit more, not as end of the world, but again, I want to make you aware of what's going on with Trump as well, guys. And this is coming from the Gateway Pundit, but former President Donald Trump is sounding the alarm as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has allegedly tried to stack the courts with liberal judges. And just to unpack this briefly here, it's no secret that the judiciary has been a battleground for political influence. But if these reports are accurate, what we're seeing is an unprecedented attempt to tip the scales of justice in favor of a particular ideology. And again, Donald Trump, never one to mince words, has come forward to warn the American people about what he calls a judicial coup. He's accusing Schumer and his allies of pushing through a slate of activist judges who, in Trump's words, care more about advancing a radical agenda than upholding the Constitution. Now, of course, you might be thinking, here we go again, more political theater, but let's consider the implications. The courts are supposed to be the impartial arbiters of our laws, the last line of defense against legislative and executive overreach. And again, if one party gains a disproportionate control over the judiciary, it undermines the checks and balances that are fundamental to our republic. Schumer, for his part, defends his actions by claiming that the courts need to be modernized to reflect the evolving values of society. But here's the kicker. Since when did the Constitution become a living document subject to the whims of the political class? Last I checked, the role of a judge is to interpret the law as it's written, not as they would like it to be. Again, let's not forget that during his tenure, Trump appointed a record number of judges who are committed to originalism and textualism, the idea that the Constitution means what it says. That was a significant shift toward preserving the foundation principles of our nation. But also with the current administration and Senate leadership, there's a push to undo that progress. And they're aiming to confirm judges who view the Constitution as a malleable guideline rather than the supreme law of the land. And of course, it's not just about ideology, it's also, as we all know, about power. Controlling the courts means controlling the interpretation of laws that affect every aspect of our lives, from gun rights and free speech to religious liberty and property rights. It's a power grab, plain and simple. And here's the thought: if Schumer and his colleagues are so confident in their policies, why not let them stand on their own merits? Why the need to reshape the judiciary to ensure these policies aren't struck down? Maybe it's because they know some of these initiatives wouldn't hold up under scrutiny. Also, it's worth noting that the speed at which these nominations are being pushed through is staggering. Again, it's almost as though there is a rush to get as many judges confirmed before the American people can catch on. But of course, we're paying attention. And again, in typical Washington fashion, there's talk of procedural changes to make this all happen smoothly, like eliminating the filibuster for judicial nominations or by bypassing traditional vetting processes. Because again, who needs thorough background checks when you're in a hurry to remake the judiciary, right? Again, all jokes aside, again, this is a serious matter. The integrity of our legal system is at stake. And if we allow the courts to become just another political tool, we erode the very foundation of justice in this country. So again, what's the takeaway? Vigilance. We, the American people, need to stay informed and hold our elected officials accountable. The judiciary should not be a political playground, but a bastion of fairness. So that was one report that you might not have heard about, but we're making you aware of that. Going on again with the conflict again developing over in NATO and Russia, we're also checking in real-time live right now with this eruption that just popped up again. Rhonda again has that report up right now. Some of the, what do we got? Others coming in as well. True Believers reporting that they just got a report now that Israel will bomb extensive targets in Iraq within hours. Just broke just seconds ago as well. I want to make you aware of that. So that's a report that just broke. Let me continue on with the news. So we're giving you all this real-time information. Just popped in again. What's going on with Israel? Going to be starting some bombing runs in Iraq, and also what's going on with that volcano that just erupted in Iceland. Again, going just a little bit further in the deeper dive again, in a development that's sending again shockwaves through global markets and geopolitical circles alike, as stocks have slumped today as Ukraine reportedly fired UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles at Russia. Again, this was reported again from Zero Hedge. But again, the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia has taken a sharp turn, and not for the better. Ukraine's deployment of UK-supplied Storm Shadow missiles again marks a significant escalation, a move that's raising eyebrows and tensions across the globe. First off, just to talk about the Storm Shadow missile, this isn't some off-the-shelf firecracker. We're dealing with a long-range, again, air-launched cruise missile known for its precision and destructive capability. And by employing such advanced weaponry, Ukraine is signaling a new level of engagement in this conflict. It's a bold move, but one has to wonder, is it a wise one? The immediate impact: global stock markets are feeling the heat. Investors are jittery, and you can hardly blame them. Again, the Dow, as we talked about earlier, is down. The S&P is slipping, and international markets are following suit. I think the only good thing has been that the crypto, Bitcoin, as you can see right now, is doing pretty well. It looks like 94,000 right as we speak here. But again, it's as if the financial world collectively held its breath and then exhaled in sigh of anxiety. But beyond the numbers, there's a bigger question. Again, what does this mean for international relations? The UK's involvement, supplying such sophisticated arms to Ukraine, is a game changer. It's not just a supportive gesture, it's a direct action that could have far-reaching implications. Again, Russia, unsurprisingly, isn't taking this lightly. Kremlin has already issued statements condemning the move, calling it a provocation. Again, is this the slippery slope we've been warning about? Again, are we inching closer to a larger conflict that could draw in more nations? It's starting to feel like a high-stakes game of chess, but the pieces are armed missiles. The players are nuclear-capable countries. That's not really a very comforting thought. And let's not forget the human element here. Now, while governments play their geopolitical games, it's the everyday people who suffer, families in Ukraine and Russia caught in the crossfires, the soldiers on both sides risking their lives. Again, it's a grim reminder that war isn't just about territory and power, it's about real lives being upended. So again, this is a very concerning developments, guys, that we've been watching very, very closely. And also with the markets having a big hit as well. The other report that I've got for you here is coming from Reuters again. Stated that this is what I was going to tell you about the hotline. Kremlin has stated that the Russian-U.S. hotline, designed to defuse crisis, is currently not in use. Now, if that doesn't raise some eyebrows, I don't know what will. But to break this down, the hotline between Moscow and Washington has historically been a critical tool for de-escalating tensions and preventing misunderstandings that could lead to a catastrophic consequence. The fact that it's sitting silent amid rising global tensions is frankly alarming. Now, why isn't this vital line of communication active? Is it negligence, strategic choice, or something more concerning? Now, the Kremlin hasn't offered much detail, and Washington is keeping mum as well. In times like these, though, silence isn't golden, and it's actually very dangerous. Consider the backdrop. Again, what we've been telling you about for the last few days, increasing friction between the U.S. and Russia over various international issues, from cyber attacks to territorial disputes. The absence of open communication only adds fuel to the fire. Again, it's almost as if both sides are content to let tensions simmer, maybe even boil over. And who pays the price for these geopolitical game of chicken? Well, ordinary folks like you and me. And some might say, well, it's just a hotline. What's the big deal? But if you remember, some of you may remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. Back then, a lack of direct communication brought us to the brink of nuclear war. The hotline was established to prevent exactly that kind of scenario. Ignoring it now is like disabling your smoke alarm while your house is on fire. And also, let's think about why this hotline isn't being used. Could it be that behind the scenes channels are at play? Or perhaps there's a reluctance to engage due to pride or political posturing. Either way, it's unacceptable. Leadership does require dialogue, especially when global security is at stake. And also, let's not forget the media's role or lack thereof in all this. Mainstream outlets seem more interested in celebrity scandals and partisan bickering than addressing issues that could impact our national security. Again, it's up to us to ask the tough questions and demand accountability. And another angle, if the U.S. and Russia aren't talking, who steps into that vacuum? Other global players like China or rogue states could exploit this communication breakdown to further their own agendas. The world doesn't operate in a vacuum, and neither should our foreign policy. So what's the takeaway here? The silence of the Russian-U.S. hotline is more than just a missed call. It's a missed opportunity for peace and stability. And again, it's high time our leaders put aside their differences and pick up the phone literally. Open dialogue isn't just a sign of weakness, it's a prerequisite for effective leadership. Of course, we're going to continue to monitor this situation closely, bringing you updates as they unfold, because times like these, staying informed isn't just important, it's essential, as you well know. The other report that I got for you today, this one is just kind of a brief report, only because there's been a little bit of a debate about all the developments of this. Some of this happened or not. Again, there's a lot of back and forth with some propaganda back and forth today. But again, this was coming from MSN News, actually, and reported today. Ukraine, again, launched a bold strike against, actually, they said, an estate reportedly linked to Russian President Vladimir Putin using British supplied missiles. That, I guess what I'm trying to say is the estate was hit. And to take a moment to digest this, if these reports are accurate, Ukraine just didn't poke the bear, they walked right up to it and gave it a good slap. And again, utilizing British-made weaponry to target a site associated with Putin himself, it's not just upping the ante, it's throwing the whole deck on the table. Again, we were telling you about these precision-guided missiles, and again, the fact that Ukraine is deploying such advanced Western hardware sends a clear message not only to Russia, but to the entire world. They're not playing defense anymore, they're taking the fight right to the front door. So I'm watching that very, very closely, guys. Again, with that, there was some reports of that, again, about that estate. I want to make you aware of that. We're waiting for some more confirmation about that, but I saw that and I want to make you aware of that. Let me check in with you all. While we're at it right now, let me just check in with our audience tonight. Hey, good to see being John here in here tonight. I'm glad to see you all tonight. I'm glad you're watching us tonight. Thanks to all of our moderators tonight. And I'm glad to see everybody in here. We've got a good crowd over on YouTube tonight. Thanks for watching. And thanks everybody for watching over on Rumble. And thanks everybody for watching over on Twitch tonight. Again, a lot of developments going on. Just to recap very quickly tonight, we've had reports of the Israel getting ready to bomb Iraq. Also, the volcano has erupted in Iceland on that. But let's continue on with some other news, going this time into a little bit of political news, and that make the news today. That's interesting in making developments in the media industry. Comcast has reportedly greenlight a $7 billion spinoff of its major news networks. This is MSNBC and CNBC. Again, this story comes from Zero Hedge, but other reports today, folks are reporting this as well. But again, to dive into what this could mean for the future of mainstream media, Comcast, a colossal force in the communication world, seems to be making a bold move. Offloading two of its flagship news outlets isn't just a financial decision, it's a statement about the shifting sands of media consumption. And to think about it, $7 billion is no small sum. So why would Comcast decide to part ways with networks that have been a household name for decades? Some analysts suggest it's a strategic pivot to focus on more profitable or emerging sectors like streaming services and technological innovations. Others speculate that declining viewership and growing public skepticism toward mainstream media may have forced Comcast's hand. Now, to be honest, many Americans have grown weary of the same old narratives published and pushed by traditional news outlets. Perhaps Comcast has realized that the audience is craving something different, something more authentic and less filtered. And maybe they're acknowledging that in today's digital age, people have more choices and aren't settling for one-sided stories. And then there's also the bigger picture to consider. The media landscape is rapidly evolving, with independent journalists and alternative platforms gaining significant traction. The monopoly on information is eroding, and big players like Comcast might be trying to adapt before they're left behind. Now, this is where it actually gets interesting. What happens to MSNBC and CNBC after the spinoff? Will they undergo a transformation, shedding their old biases for more balanced reporting? Or will they continue down the same path under new ownership? Question worth pondering, especially for those of us who value diverse perspectives in our news. And also, let's not overlook the timing of this move. With so much happening globally, economic uncertainties, political shifts, social changes, this decision adds another layer of complexity to how news is delivered and consumed. It's almost as if the traditional media giants are trying to find their footing in a world that's rapidly changing under their feet. And of course, we can't ignore the impact of the employees, the journalists, the producers, and staff who built their careers at these networks. Corporate shakeups of this magnitude often come with a great deal of uncertainty. Again, jobs could be at stake, and the internal culture could shift dramatically. But again, from a viewer's standpoint, this could be an opportunity for positive change. Again, perhaps we'll see a resurgence of journalism that prioritizes facts over sensationalism, that seeks to inform rather than indoctrinate, or perhaps it's just reshuffling of the deck of chairs. Now, only time will tell. Again, the takeaway here, Comcast's decision to potentially spin off MSNBC and CNBC for a hefty $7 billion is more than just a business transaction. It's a reflection of the evolving media environment. And as consumers, it's a reminder to stay vigilant, seek out multiple sources. Hopefully you check us out here at TNS and not rely solely on traditional outlets for our news. Of course, we're going to be keeping a close eye on things here as the story unfolds, bringing you the latest updates and insights. So I want to make you aware of that as well, guys. Let's see here. We've got another one for you in here. We talked about the other day here about Google. Remember I was telling you about the Department of Justice the other day. But now Google is coming back. Google is lashing out at the Department of Justice over plans to force the sale of its Chrome browser business. Again, this story comes from Breitbart. To unpack this, because it's a big one, again, we talked about this yesterday, the DOJ has stepped into the ring, proposing that Google divest its immensely popular Chrome browser, citing antitrust concerns and a need to foster healthy competition in the tech industry. Google, unsurprisingly, isn't taking this lying down. Again, it's almost amusing. Google, the behemoth that controls a significant chunk of our online lives, is crying foul when the government suggests that they might be a tad too powerful. It's like Goliath complaining about David's slingshot being unfair. Google argues that forcing the sale of Chrome would harm consumers and disrupt the seamless integration users have come to expect. But again, let's be real here. Is this about user experience, or is it about Google's grip on our data and by extension our lives? They built an empire on collecting information, and Chrome is one of their most potent tools for doing just that. Again, the DOJ's move signals a growing recognition that maybe, just maybe, having a single company wield such immense power over the internet isn't the best idea. And it's a sentiment many of us have been echoing for years. And again, after all, healthy competition breeds innovation, and monopolies tend to stifle it. And there's what Google is saying is they released a statement calling the DOJ's plan misguided and a step backward for technological progress. They warned that such a move could fragment the internet experience and pose security risk. But doesn't that sound a little bit like fear-mongering? Again, the kicker is this isn't the first time Google faced antitrust scrutiny. They were actually fined billions by the European Union for anti-competitive practices, or on other times, numerous states sued them over their advertising dominance. Again, it's a pattern. The tech giants' control over search, advertising, and browsing creates a trifecta of influence that's hard to match. And by potentially breaking up this trio, the DOJ aims to level the playing field. And honestly, isn't that what free market is supposed to be about? And also, let's consider the impact on other tech companies. Smaller browsers and search engines could finally have a fair shot at competing. Innovation could flourish without being snuffed out by a dominant player controlling the rules of the game. And of course, there's a flip side. Users have, of course, grown accustomed to the convenience of the Google's ecosystem. And we know sometimes change can be a little uncomfortable. But sometimes a little discomfort is necessary for the greater good. After all, do we really want a single corporation holding the keys to the kingdom, especially of information? And it's also worth noting that this move by the DOJ reflects a broader push for tech reform. There's actually been bipartisan efforts are increasingly focusing on data privacy, antitrust issues, and the societal impacts of big tech's reach. So maybe Washington is finally catching up with what many Americans have felt for a long time, that unchecked corporate power isn't in our best interest. And again, what's the takeaway? Google's outrage might be loud, but it doesn't necessarily make it right. The proposed sale of Chrome could usher in a new era of competition and consumer choice. And while Google warns of doom and gloom, history shows that markets adapt and are often for the better. Of course, we'll be keeping a close eye on this, and it's a pivotal moment. Could redefine the tech landscape for years to come. There's even been some talk that Rumble could be getting involved in that as well. So we're going to keep a very close eye on that. In terms of the other developments I got for you a little bit, I want to get you a little bit caught up on China, only what they, in terms of their response, what's going on with Russia. But according to a development that's shaking up the global stage, this was also reported from MSN News, China has responded to Russia's threat to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Of course, again, to break it down, Russia has been rattling the nuclear saber over its ongoing conflict with Ukraine, a situation that's already more volatile than a Texas tornado in springtime. But now China's Russia's supposed strategic partner is actually stepping into the ring with a response that could change the dynamics of this high-stakes standoff. Now, China's reaction is significant for several reasons. First off, it signals that Beijing might not be entirely comfortable with Moscow's nuclear posturing. And again, who can blame them? The use of nuclear weapons isn't just crossing the line, it's erasing them altogether. Even China, with all of its global ambitions, seems to recognize that some sort of threshold shouldn't be breached. Again, but let's not just get too cozy with the idea that China is playing peacemaker out of the goodness of their hearts. They've got their own interests to protect. A nuclear conflict in Europe would send economic shockwaves around the world, something that wouldn't sit well with China's export-driven economy. They're as tied up into this global system as the rest of us. So in this case, what does China's response mean for Russia? Well, it's clear that the signal that they're not getting a blank check from Beijing. Putin might have thought he had unconditional support, but it appears there's a limit even among friends. It's like when your buddy tells you he'll back you up in a bar fight, but draws the line at bringing a bazooka in, okay? So for the United States and our allies, this could be a subtle opportunity. If China is distancing itself from Russia, there might be room to leverage that in terms of diplomacy. Of course, that would require a deft handling, a quality that's been short supply lately in Washington. Meanwhile, Ukraine remains caught in the middle, facing threats that no sovereign nation should have to endure. Now, the Ukrainian people have shown incredible resilience, but the specter of nuclear weapons adds an unthinkable layer of danger to an already dire situation. Now, also to consider the broader implication, if Russia feels isolated, even by its closest partners, it might either rein in its aggression or conversely become even more unpredictable. Neither scenario is particularly comforting, but awareness is the first step toward preparedness. So I want to make you aware of that development going on today. Of course, we're going to keep you updated on these developments as they come in. Let me check in with y'all tonight while we're at it here and to check in with our audience. Good to see you all tonight. A lot of EAMs that have been going on tonight with our U.S. Air Force. And again, it's fantastic to see our audience tonight over on YouTube. We got a lot of you. I see a lot of blue in here tonight. Glad you're with us. Thank you so much. Let me look, and we're going to just check in some of the most real-time news. We've kind of been going over these more detailed news articles that I'm trying to go in now and do a little bit more of a deep dive from now on. So we're going to have more of a focused news reports, but I also want to get you caught up with some just anything that's breaking at the moment. We've had some reports earlier today just to catch up that there's been some sites that have been down. Reddit was down earlier. And who else was it? There's somebody else I just forgot that was down. Somebody else can tell me in a second. But we had some sites that were down earlier today. So there's a lot of stuff back and forth that could be going on. And also, just to catch up, I'm looking through Maranatha here. Gets Senate meetings going great ahead of confirmation hearings that broke just a moment ago. Ellen DeGeneres is leaving and fleeing to the UK. I'm sure you're concerned about that. Nikki Haley is saying that Tulsi is a Russian sympathizer. I'm just reading these one-line headlines in here real quick, guys. Florida man arrested in New York Stock Exchange bomb plot. It's breaking today. Again, we just talked about this a minute ago. The Iceland volcano has erupted. This is in the southwest region of the country. BNO News has some links on that, guys, and our moderators should have a few of those links as well. I don't want to put that up on screen, obviously, for copyright issues, but again, that just broke moments ago. Trump is also vowing a Keystone XL pipeline comeback. He's planning to revive the canceled Keystone XL pipeline on day one, despite TC Energy's withdrawal and dismantling of the project. What else do we got in here? A lot of terrible news out in the world. A Virginia woman is accused of setting a friend on fire. What else do we got in here? U.S. to hit China with nearly 40% tariffs, slowing growth. Reuters poll of economists showed that Trump will likely roll out a hefty tariffs. And then looking through some of the other reports I'm coming in tonight, again, the last report I had was the Biden administration has asked Congress to cancel nearly half of Ukraine's economic debt, about $4.65 billion. We just talked about that a little bit earlier. Other than that, though, guys, it's a little bit quieter at the moment. We've had no reports of anything developing in Russia at the moment, or Ukraine. We had some reports earlier of some Ukrainian drones heading toward the Belgorod region, but that was earlier. It's pretty quiet tonight, so whether something's going to develop or not, I don't know. Usually, as what happens is when I sign off a little bit later in the evening, then things start percolating back up again. So it's very possible that could happen. So that's kind of where we stand on that. Let me check in again, guys, with you tonight, guys. I'm glad that you all are with us tonight. All the blue guys that are in here over on our YouTube audience. We had a fantastic crowd coming in, checking in with us. I'm giving you these updates out as many days as I can, especially with what's going on with these interesting conflict, I guess you could say, with Ukraine. Just to recap again, Ukraine did launch earlier today the British Storm Shadow missiles. That's followed from the other day from the ATA CMS missiles from the United States. So we're watching things very closely. In terms of the Russian aviation, you can see over in the blue sidebar, that was a little bit of activity going on earlier. I don't have a lot of other reports about that yet, so we'll just have to keep an eye on things. As again, we're always streaming live on Rumble, and so you can, when I sign off on YouTube, guys, if you're new, check us out over on our Rumble platform or over on Twitch, and just so you can stay with us. Also, appreciate everybody for your support. We've been doing well, guys. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel through the rants and etc. We're doing well. I just want to thank you very much for your kindness and keeping the channel going. We're doing well. We've made a lot of substantial improvement over the way things were a while back, so I do appreciate it. Thanks, guys, very much. And thanks, Todd, over here, over on YouTube. Thank you, Todd Bradshaw. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your kindness on that as well. It all adds up. And as I said before, the Twitch revenue that I talked to you about the other day, we found out that it affected a lot of other creators the other day, so it wasn't just TNS. It actually affected about, well, pretty much anybody who was probably doing news. It wasn't just TNS. I want to make you aware of that if you didn't know that. So that broke. So in terms of probably some of the advertising and some of the situation that was going on with Twitch, that's why the advertising was taken down, at least the ad revenue part of that. So that's what happened. Anyway, again, thank you guys. Again, thanks, Todd. Glad that we can get you these reports in. We're going to be covering this every day for y'all, keeping you updated on what's going on. I'm doing research in the afternoon, covering more in-depth reporting, so we can get you more of a complete report in the evening. And it seems to be doing fairly well. We're getting some pretty good larger numbers with our YouTube crowd going forward. So that's good. But that's pretty much all I've got to report at the moment. I will give you a quick weather update across the continental United States and let you know what's going on weather-wise, because that's what we do here at TNS. And wrap it up here. In terms of the weather, it's a little bit on the cooler side. Let me show you this real quick, guys. Hang on, don't go anywhere. All right. Here's the current weather conditions. As soon as our weather command pops up here, you can see that it's kind of on the cooler side across most of the country. It's been warm for so long, but it's definitely cool down here in Dallas. We're 55 here in DFW. It's 75 out in Phoenix tonight, 63 degrees in LA, 57 up in San Francisco. You can see up in the Pacific Northwest, there's that big bomb cyclone that was going on. And I believe also that it killed a few people as well. So terrible situation on the Pacific Northwest. Across the northern tier of the United States, it's in the 20s now, so we're definitely getting into the middle to latter part of November where this starts happening. 21 degrees looks like up in Bismarck, 36 pretty chilly in Chicago, 54 in Little Rock, 50 degrees across the Tennessee and Kentucky area. 75 east of the front in Florida, in Jacksonville, 79 in Miami, and across the Northeast, chilly as well, 46 degrees looks like up in Boston, and some showers across from New York through Pennsylvania and down into the Virginias as well. But otherwise, a little bit cooler. Looking at some more of the long range forecast, we're going to be trending a little bit more active, I think, during Thanksgiving week. And also longer range indicates, again, which would be more typical, some pretty cold air coming in by very late November or December. So it's that time of the year where weather patterns are starting to look a lot more like winter. So we'll keep you updated on that. So that's pretty much the report that I've got for you all tonight, at least over on YouTube. Just want to get you caught up with everything, guys, again. Thanks, everybody, again. Thanks to our moderators tonight over on YouTube. We had, again, thanks to Jan, thanks to Jerry, thanks to Being John, thanks to who else am I missing in here tonight over on YouTube. I thank you very, very much for supporting us and keeping us going. Again, we've kind of come over a hump and we're definitely doing better, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else to report. Let me check in with over on our Rumble crowd. Stephen is reporting tonight. Pollster Nate Silver's calls on Biden to resign after claiming he isn't competent to be president right now. That just broke. Thanks, Stephen, for that. And again, what do we got over on Twitch? Fairly quiet. So that's kind of the news. Guys, probably what's going to happen. So thank you, Jan. Thanks, everybody, for that. Thanks for the moderation, guys. I really appreciate it. It really helps out. Lost my train of thought. So I think that with that in mind, all the links for anything else is down in our descriptions below. If you want to follow us, if you want to support the channel, if you want to get the newsletter, etc., it's all there in the links below. Again, thanks, everybody. You all have a fantastic night. Join us for the remainder of the night over on Rumble and Twitch. For TNS, Texas News Studio, I'm Mark Myers, and I'll see you soon, as in tomorrow, at the next report. Take care, everybody.